Recite al-Fatiha, please. بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين المصطفى أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. لعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم إلى قيامة يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، يا غريب كربلاء، رزقنا الله في الدنيا زيارتكم وشفاعتكم في الدنيا وفي الآخرة. أما بعد، يقول الله في محكم كتابه وقرآنه المجيد وقوله الحق: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our discussion on Imama begins tonight. This is now our 8th lecture in this series. But before we begin on Imama, there's a few notes on prophethood, on Nubuwah, that I'd like to wrap up. First and foremost, there are some other religions, not just Christians, but also increasingly within the last couple of years, Hindus as well, who accuse the Prophet of Islam, Rasulullah, of being influenced by the devil, and therefore, because of a narrative found in the books of some other schools of thought, they run with this narrative of the satanic verses. Therefore, empowered by this, they start accusing us of being of the devil. So very quickly, I want to respond to this, but not in probably a way that has been responded to before. The way how I'll respond to it is this. Before Rasulullah comes to the Hijaz area, what is the state of affairs of the people of Mecca and Medina? They were in Jahiliyyah. We call it Jahiliyyah al-Ula. They were, having illicit, relationships with each other. They were burying their baby girls alive, disrespecting their parents. They had around the Kaaba and inside the Kaaba 360 different idols. They, in your calendar, one God for each and every single day. Right? So the question then that we pose is, if this religion really is from the devil, and Shaitan really wasted his time. I mean, they were doing pretty well on their own, misguiding themselves. Right? If the Satan of the Abrahamic religions, right, the enemy of Adam and Noah and Abraham and Moses and Jesus. This is the same Satan that we're talking about. Of course, at least from our accusers who are from the Christian school of thought, that's exactly what they're talking about. And why would he waste his time on the people of Arabia? He goes and brings them out of the depths of darkness, supposedly, right? This is Satan who's doing this. Takes them out of the darkness from burying their baby girls alive, from cheating people in business, right? He takes people out of these illicit relationships. He takes them away from polytheism. He teaches them about Adam and Noah and Abraham and Moses and Jesus and all of the other prophets that we have in the Quran. And he starts teaching them a moral system. He teaches them to respect the prophets of the past, respect the peoples of those religions and their books. I mean, this is a shaitan that's kind of gone crazy for 23 years, right? So this is how we would respond to these kinds of crazy claims. And really, these are crazy claims. They're, ill-founded. All they have is a YouTube, university education and their PhDs in this kind of education. And all they know how to do is waste other people's times. So we reject these kinds of arguments that pose or portray our prophet as someone who is influenced by the devil. This does not occur even within our hadith court. Second of all, on this discussion of prophethood, we mentioned yesterday after the lecture within the Q&A that and even within the lecture, that you'll find that this prophet, any prophet, a real prophet, they will be steadfast in their message. So even if something comes up where the people of his town tell them, or tell this messenger, tell the prophet, stop preaching, we will give you money, we will give you wives, we will give you authority, we will give you political power, we will give you whatever you want, just stop preaching. In Mecca, when this happens to our prophet, and we read what happens with other prophets in the Quran, they say politely, no thank you. Keep it for yourself. You don't need this. And even once they do, for example, the few that did reach power, you find that it doesn't faze them at all. Look at Yusuf alayhi salam. He says the same exact thing, or people are saying the same exact thing to him when he's in prison and when he's in power. We see that you are from amongst the Salihin. Two prisoners, before they ask him to interpret their dream, we see you from amongst the Salihin, as well as his brothers, before they even know who he is, all they see him is the Aziz of Misr. They're like, we see you as one of the Salihin. Exact, word for word, verbatim, copy and paste from these two places in the surah. Why? Because you can't change a prophet. These guys are higher than money and status and wealth and power. A lot of people, however, who try to make these claims of prophethood, a lot of times you'll find that as soon as they get their actual goal, whether it's power, money, whatever it is, and we don't even need to take the names of some people who are claiming the modern claim in 2024 that they are prophets, or as tomorrow we will analyze, those who are claiming to be Imāms. Find that their character changes as soon as they have money, power, influence, women, whatever their actual goal was. With the prophets and Imāms, you don't find a single change. So now, moving on then to the next point of our discussion. Why exactly do we need Imāms if we already have prophets? You'll find that scholars of other schools of thought will come to us and they will pose this question, sometimes out of sincerity, sometimes out of malicious intent, to try to make us slip up and to expose us. So it's imperative that we have answers, brothers and sisters, no matter who, with what kind of intentions they have, no matter who asks us, we're ready. Why do we believe in it? I mean, those scholars will come and say to us, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already says in the third ayah of Surah Al-Ma'idah, الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ, that today I have finished your religion. So if this is the case, what are you guys trying to do? Sneak in imama over here and say that we have 12 more people after Rasulullah? No, Islam is done. It is a complete religion. We say that, look, even according to your books, your hadith books, the likes of Bukhari, You ask them, what is the status of Bukhari? Bukhari, oh my God, it has the number 2 position. After the Quran, it is called Sahih al-Bukhari because there is nothing that is da'if or even questionable in Sahih al-Bukhari. That's why you don't even need a sanad or isnad in Bukhari because it is taken upon the word and the research of Imam al-Bukhari. You say, okay, well, Bukhari has the following hadith, that the final ayah to be revealed was the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, the longest ayah in the entire Quran, that one that takes the entire page, the ayah concerning riba and business transactions. We say that if this comes last, and this is a viewpoint amongst their scholars of tafsir, then clearly Quran is not done. The religion is not done. Some details can be still exposed. So we reject this idea of the religion is closed off. There's no more need of anything. No. In fact, yesterday, and I don't know how old the clip is, but yesterday I was forwarded a clip of Sheikh Ahmed al-Hilmi. He gave a very interesting story of a school student. Whether it happened or not, we don't care because it's the moral of the story that we care about. What happens? He's in one of those very non-friendly, non-Shia states. And he's in grade school and his teacher keeps on telling them, goes through the entire seerah of Rasulullah, and he very, cursorily just glances over Ghadir Khum. When he does, he says, okay, yeah, some people say that he said, Man kuntu mawla fahada Ali al-Mawla, but what do we say about this? We say that he said, whoever I'm his friend, whoever I'm his friend, Ali is also his friend. This young Shia boy, he's been raised correctly and he's been raised with the correct beliefs. He knows what the actual narrative is. He's burning on the inside. He wants to say something, but he keeps silent. A couple of weeks later, it seems that this teacher needs to go outside of class and make a few copies. So he goes and appoints this very student in charge of the class. He says, I'm just going to be gone 5 minutes and I'll be back. Goes and makes the copies, comes back. Comes back, he tells the student, okay, you can take your seat. He says, no. So what are you talking about? No, I'm the teacher. You're the student. Take your seat. Otherwise, you're going to be expelled. He says, before I do, I want to ask you a question. He says, okay, what's your question? He says, you were gone for 5 minutes, and what did you do with me? He says, well, I needed someone to go and watch over the class, and I told them to listen to you and make sure that they listen to you because I see you as trustworthy. He says, you left for 5 minutes, and you saw the necessity of leaving an authority over the classroom of 20 or so kids. You're telling me that Allah and Rasulullah didn't see it as wise for 100,000 plus Muslims that they need an authority. He just said, inshallah, you guys can take care of it yourself. You wouldn't be so irresponsible for 5 minutes, but you're accusing Rasulullah and Allah of the same exact thing for the rest of human history. Teacher doesn't have an immediate reply. And so, of course, what do adults do when a kid gives a smart aleck response? Says it's time for you to go to the headmaster. So he sends him to the headmaster, says, what's exactly happened? The teacher goes and tells the story. Student says, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Student said, the headmaster says, you're going to go home, bring tomorrow your wali. Now, wali, of course, this is one of the Arabic Khaliji countries, it seems. He knows exactly what wali means. What does he do the next day? He comes by himself. He says, I told you to go and get all of your things because we're going to expel you from the school. And I told you to bring your wali. Where's your wali? He says, he's outside. He says, bring him. Goes and brings in his friend. He's like, what are you doing over here? You think this is a joke? I need your guardian or your parent. He says, yeah, but I'm a faithful student of your school. For the past however many years, you guys have been teaching us that wali means friend. He says, but in the Quran, the only meaning of wali is of authority. He says, so then you expect me to go and believe that Rasulullah, when after he goes and quotes, النَّبِيُّ أَوْلَى بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ, Surah Al-Ahzab, ayah number 6. And then afterwards he goes and says, Man kuntu mawla fahada Ali al-Mawla. You expect me to go and believe that he went and stopped 100,000 or more, actually 120,000 people in the hot desert, just for me to know that me and Ali are chums. Me and Ali are best mates. If you want a good friend, go and ask Ali if he'll be your friend. This is what you expect me to go and believe. This is why we Shia, he goes and tells the headmaster, we will never stop fighting for the true interpretation of this, because Rasulullah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did leave us with an authority. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now, what exactly are the roles of a prophet? A couple of nights ago, when we were still discussing prophethood, we quickly looked over a different question, a similar question, but we looked at the question of what exactly does a prophet do for me? What's my benefit of having a prophet? And at that time, our focus were those people who were spiritual but not religious, people who said that we don't need a prophet, people who said that we don't want to live by the rules and regulations that were given to us 1400 years ago. And that's why we came with those answers. Today, however, we want to see what are some of the main roles that a prophet does, and what exactly do we still need afterwards? So answer number one is he answers questions for us. Whether we're Muslim or non-Muslim, if we want to have the correct idea about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or about the previous prophets, or about our belief system, these kinds of complex questions, we need a prophet to answer for us. You find even within previous nations, this is what a prophet would do. He would answer people's questions, especially those who he was inviting to Islam for the first time. That's number one. Do we see any proof for this from the Quran? Yes. Where do we find such a answer? In ayah number 213 of Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَانَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ النَّبِيِّينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ وَأَنزَلَ مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ يَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِيمَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, mankind once upon a time was united, but you have to read between the lines. Why exactly would Allah need to go and send the prophets? Another ayah that we have brought in this series answers that we would have made them, and if we wanted, we could have made them one single nation upon hidayah, but they won't stop having their own ideas. Ikhtilaf keeps on arising. So it's okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants free will. Once that happens, however, He sends help. He sends nabiyina wa mundhirin, so that they can come back to the right path. Okay, so now that He's done that, وَأَنزَلَ مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ, we sent a book with purpose. Why? لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِيمَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ, so that we could go and correct, and we could judge. Who's this we? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the prophets. Judge between the people in whatever they have ikhtilaf in. Okay. Second answer to this question of what exactly does a prophet do? What is his role? Is to clarify the ayat of the book that he brings, whether it's the Suhuf of Ibrahim and Musa, whether it's the Torah, whether it's the Injil, or whether it's the Quran of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Find that our school of thought does not believe that you can separate the messenger from the message. Messenger is part of the message. This is something that we looked at even in the Nights of Prophethood. That you have a test also within these people who are chosen. It's not just that someone will be chosen, everyone's going to be okay with it, and democratically everybody was on this idea anyway. No. In fact, sometimes you'll find that the prophet was the most unpopular person. Sure, they had good morals, but quickly, because they were saying the wrong things, things that were politically incorrect, things that were harsh, things that were not, of course their akhlaq was always the same. It came with the harshest messages. Yes, it's not easy for you to go and say that, yes, it's okay. I know that this is not what our fathers and grandfathers and et cetera, were believing. And what's going to happen to them? Well, unfortunately, there is a hellfire. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides not to forgive them, they will go to hellfire. These are not easy messages. And that's why, brothers and sisters, it's very important even for us to take this message, to never compromise our beliefs. Many people over the last decade and a half compromised on the Islamic message on many things. On family structure, homosexuality, on gender roles within a family, on the role of a prophet within a society. They compromised on these simply because the other side came and said, oh no, there's a lot of love that's needed. We need understanding. We can have understanding. But at the same time, our narrative is our narrative. We will not budge on this. This is why Surah Al-Kahf comes and says, قَيِّمًا يُنذِرَ بَأْسًا شَدِيدًا. This Quran will stay firm and upright no matter what fad comes in through society. These are all fads. Eventually they will leave. But the Quran stays firm. We have prophets who came to come and warn us against these exact things. Many people sold out when it came to these issues. This is not something that we can encourage from the minbar. This is something that we have to encourage for people to come back to reevaluate their stances and their positions, and come back to Muhammad and Aly Muhammad. So, when the Quran comes and says in Surah Al-Nahl, ayah number 44, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. That we sent you to go and clarify what was sent to the people. This book does not just come by itself so that we can go and interpret it however we like. There are infallible interpreters sent with this message. We can't just treat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as if he's a postman. Leave the Amazon delivery over here. Ring the doorbell. Don't ring the doorbell. Make sure you knock, but people are sleeping inside. We can't go and give these kinds of instructions like how we give our Amazon delivery drivers or our DoorDash or Grubhub or whatever else we use as these delivery services. That's not how we go and treat our messengers. And then afterward, we can go and put 5-star review even for the delivery or for the food. What is this? People go and leave, by the way, reviews of the Quran. Oh, this I didn't like. This I did like. This I didn't like. This consumerist society where we've been trained to be in the primary position where we feel we have the right to comment. I mentioned a couple of nights ago using Surah Al-Baqarah ayah number 26 as my basis that some people have a wrong attitude towards the Quran. When they come and say, ماذا أراد الله بهذا? What could Allah possibly, why would he use this as an example? Right? The opposite, what Allah Ta'ala wants from us is, look, everything that Allah Ta'ala says, I accept. When you are a student of this book, you come humbly, and whatever lesson it has to teach you, you learn from it. Unfortunately, in today's society, we find people not only repurposing the Quran for their own purposes, agendas, we find them also coming and repurposing the Prophet. Oh, the Prophet was the first, for example, feminist. Okay, well, what kind of feminist? Define your terms. Do you mean a first wave feminist? Do you mean a second wave, third wave, fourth wave? What kind of feminist are you talking about? When you go and just throw out these modern terms that our scholars have not come out and endorsed, you have to be very careful with those kinds of terminologies. Because some of these go completely contrary, not only to hijab, but also to everything else that Rasulullah stood for as a family man. When we come and try to repurpose Karbala and Ashura, and we say, oh, Imam Hussein alayhi salam was all about social justice. What's wrong with justice that we needed to go and put a modifier called social justice? Is there such a thing called personal justice? That I, by myself in my room, with the lights turned off, I'm going to be just with myself on an island? What are you talking about? Justice can only happen in a society, right? These kinds of terms that have been force-fed to us by certain agendas, we need to be very careful when we start to use them in an Islamic context, when we start to use them with holy causes. Rasulullah and Imam Hussein, these are very sacred things, and we need to be very, very careful. You can't just go and willy-nilly whatever thing that happens to be the fad on Reddit or on Twitter. That's now, oh, Imam Hussein was there first. Imam Hussein alayhi salam stood for what he stood for, not for you to come and repurpose and to appropriate, right? This is exactly what they don't like. They don't like to appropriate other cultures. Well, then stop appropriating our religion, these other causes that weren't necessarily even in the minds of the prophets and Imams when they were doing their mission. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alihi. This is what we believe in. Our school of thought has infallible interpreters. You stick to them in Nahj al-Balagha, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, you will be saved. Imam Ali alayhi salam has a very interesting phrase. He says, in this life, all you need to do is just be light. Don't try to complicate it. Be light, and you'll reach your destination. What's our destination? Our destination is Jannah. All we have to do, in modern terms, is monkey see, monkey do. Right? And we're not monkeys, of course, but all we have to do is just follow what our prophets and Imams have done and said for us to do. That's it. You can know that you are mubri' lid-dhimma. You can know that you have done what is needed from you. As soon as we start reinterpreting, well, no, this is, I think, what they actually want. With all due respect, what you think, what you've just brought from your pockets, put it back in your pocket. Don't need it. We want stuff from our books. We want stuff from our qualified scholars. Okay? So we have infallible interpreters, and we have in the ayahs of the Quran exactly that purpose spelled out of what the prophets are supposed to do, as well as the Imams. And third, what else is the role of the prophet? Third role of the prophets is for them to go and expound on fiqhi matters. Quran has how many ayahs in the Quran? 6,236 according to the 1920s Egyptian verse count. Of those, how many ayahs deal with fiqh and how we are to live our lives according to religious edicts? More than 500. 500 out of 6,000. And even then, some of the ayahs, you read them one way, it's not exactly going to tell you everything you need to do. Okay? So you need a lot more clarification than just what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So for those who belong to the school of thought of just Quran, right? The Quranists, or as Sahih Muslim even quotes from Umar ibn Khattab on Raziyatul Khamis, right? That calamity of Thursday. When Rasulullah ﷺ was trying to write something, he says, if I write this for you, you will never go astray after me. What does the second Khalifa come and say? He says, Hasbuna kitabullah. Man is delirious. We have the book of Allah. We don't need anything. This is exactly what the Quran said not to do. So the Prophet's role is to go and clarify even further fiqh matters. So now, Rasulullah ﷺ, come with me. He has 23 years of prophet. I'm not saying that he wasn't a prophet prior to 40, but at least, in our school of thought, he is a silent prophet. At the age of 40, Jibreel visits him in Ghar Hira and comes and says to him, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. We saw even the prophecy of that in Isaiah. And for the first 3 years, he doesn't even publicly announce his Islam. All Islam is in those first 3 years is Rasulullah, Imam Ali alayhi salam, and Khadija. That's it. Then comes the ayah of وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ. Then he goes and shares the message with about 40 from Banu Hashim. Then afterwards he goes and starts to make it public. By the time he's done in Mecca, he has about 100 Muslims with him total. And even then, he has lost people like Abu Talib, he has lost people like Khadija. Now we go to Medina, where Rasulullah will spend the next 10 years of his life. So 13 years are in Mecca, the next 10 are in Medina. Of these 10 years, Rasulullah has a number of wars and even more defenses that he has to go and fight. Upwards of 80 skirmishes that he has to be there to defend or to fight back. And not all of these are just, okay, hey, we'll go quickly today, by afternoon, inshallah, we'll be back home after, we lose some people. No, you have to go and set up your camps. You have to go and set up your military garrisons. You don't have that kind of luxury. So Rasulullah is not really there. So for, let's say, everything but the last 2 years where he's not fighting these wars, He doesn't really have the freedom to go and expound much on this religion. Here and there, maybe he has a little bit of chance. But then in the final 2 years, that's maybe when you can say he has the most amount of freedom to come and really teach the religion. You're telling me that all of this complexity, all of this depth within Islam was all given within 2 years? Mathematically, does this even make sense? Even if Rasulullah never sleeps, even if he never stops to take a breath, never stops to eat or drink some water, he's just non-stop talking. Even then, in 2 years, you won't be able to get this much. You can't. Come now to the side of the school of Ahlul Bayt, where after Rasulullah dies, you have 250 years of Imam, where they can come and expound on the Quran. That's job number 3. Job number 2 is what? To go and clarify the ayat. We ask, did the 12 Imams ever give us tafsir of these ayat? Yes. This is something, by the way, tomorrow in the next topic, when we're going to be asking, how do I know I'm following the right Imams? I'll be asking some of these so-called Imams who claim Imamate today, are they answering their followers' questions? Are they giving any kind of clarity on the Quran or no? So they're doing job number 2, our 12 Imams. Job number 1, which is to answer the questions of people. Were they doing that? Yes, left, right, and center. So we do find that these representatives after Rasulullah, they did exactly these pivotal, crucial jobs of a messenger after Rasulullah was done. What was the alternative? Because in this series, we're trying to ask a lot of this question of what's the alternative of appointing a successor? The alternative, brothers and sisters, is that the entire Muslim Ummah is mature and they can do all of this by themselves. They can answer the people's questions about fiqh, about theology, about history, about any Islamic science that you want, they can answer. Anybody from the Muslim community. We'll see. We'll come back and we'll analyze this. Second, they can go and give you tafsir of Quran. Number 3, they can give you fiqh rulings. Let's go through each one of these 3 roles and see how did those companions and khulafa that came, that the other school of thought, the majority, would like us to accept, let's see how they did. And let's ask ourselves, is this what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left us with? We'll go and analyze these questions. بعد الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. Have another we look at the first question of answering people's questions just based on history. Let's look to an incident between Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan and Imam al-Hasan. Some Christians from Rome came. They had questions for Muawiyah. They said, you know, we have brought a sculpture with us. And we want to know, because we followed the exact description that we find in our writings, our scriptures, and we believe that this is the Prophet Adam. Can you confirm this for us? Another question that they had was, what 10 things are harder than the one that was previously made? Another one of the questions that they asked was, what is the distance between truth and falsehood? Muawiyah says, look, what you're talking about. But if you want, there's a man in Medina. You can go and ask him. People say that he's very knowledgeable. His name is Hassan. Okay, you go to Imam al-Hasan. Ask him the questions. Remember, we're imagining this is a kind of heavy statue that they have to fetch out of, all the way from Rome to Syria, from Syria to Medina. You get to Medina. Ask which one is Hassan ibn Ali. One point them to Abu Muhammad Hassan ibn Ali. Ask him. This statue, according to our scriptures, is the exact description of Prophet Adam alayhi salam. Is this correct? He says, you guys are close, but it's not Adam, it's his son Sheath. You tell me, what kind of person from all the way at the beginning of humanity is going to know, oh yeah, it's not the father, you're very close, it's the son. Has Imam Hassan seen them? What are you going off of? Do we have some descriptions that we don't know of? This is from the Ilm al-Ghayb. We believe that Imams have the exact same function as prophets, except that there is no official wahi being given to them. They have iha, which is also wahi. Similar to who? Similar to in the end of Surah Al-Ma'idah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He gave wahi to the disciples of Isa alayhi salam. So if the disciples of Isa alayhi salam can get wahi, and in Surah Al-Nahl, the bee can get wahi, and in Surah Al-Qasas, the mother of Musa can get wahi, then what's the problem with 12 men from the family of Muhammad getting wahi? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So that was the first question. The second question is, what 10 things, each one is harder than next? He says, stone is hard, but iron is harder. Iron melts in fire. Fire is melted by water. Water can be picked up by the clouds. Clouds can be moved by the wind. Wind is moved by the angel of wind. Angel of wind is overpowered by the angel of death. Angel of death is overpowered by death, and death is overpowered by Allahu. The third question is, what is the distance between truth and falsehood? It says the distance is the distance of 4 fingers. Why 4 fingers? He says because that is the distance between your eyes and your ears. What you hear should also be confirmed with what you see. They say Allah truly knows where to place His risala. We declare, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah, wa ashhadu annaka wasiyyu hadha rasul. This is the kinds of people who we want to follow, not people who say we don't know. So when it comes to number 1, answering the questions of the people, you find that there is no equivalent to the Al of Muhammad after Rasulullah. The second one, when it comes to the tafasir of the verses of the Quran, what do we find? We find, for example, in Surah Al-Takwir, right? The ayahs that say, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ الْجَوَارِ الْكُنَّسِ. You go to the other companions of Rasulullah, and what are their ideas of what this ayah is saying? What is Rabbul Alameen trying to tell us? What is He swearing by? They say, this أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ, this khunnas is that which hides or is swept away. Al-Jawar al-Kunnas, that which is, very swiftly moves and goes away. One of the companions, you can find this in some of the tafsirs of the other schools of thought. This Sahaba comes and says, this is a cow. My opinion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by a cow. Say, okay, what are you talking about, cow? This cow that Allah is swearing by, it hides very, very quickly into the bushes. And that's what meaning is. فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ الْجَوَارِ الْكُنَّسِ. I don't know what this is supposed to mean. Then you come to Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. What does he say? He says, this is the star that you can no longer see. Very interesting. Now, let's go and look a little bit closer at the actual words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Takwir. He says, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ. Khunnas is that which goes away or it's swept away very quickly. This star that you cannot see anymore, physicists have a name for it within the last, let's say, 20 to 30 years. Right? Probably founded by the theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking. It's called black holes. This is a star that you cannot see anymore, and it sweeps very, very quickly. Sweeps everything, even light cannot escape it. Al-Jawar al-Kunnas. Those of you who speak Arabic, help me out over here. What exactly do we call a vacuum cleaner in Arabic? Knasa, yes? Knasa in Arabic means a vacuum cleaner because it sweeps very quickly and cleans up. So this kunnas that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about in Surah Al-Takwir, come to Al-Muhammad and see what their tafsir is, and look at what some of the other Sahaba are saying. Over here, you get cows that want to hide very quickly into the shrubbery, and over here, you have talks about black holes 1400 years ago. Who, tell me, comes close to Al-Muhammad? Sallu ala Muhammad wa al. This is just one of the many times where the tafsir of Ahl Bayt is something that you can resonate with in your heart. It makes sense. They say one or two words and it completely solves the puzzle. There are many like this, but we're running short on time. Number 3, what do prophets do? They expound fiqh for us. And over here, we don't have to go very far. We don't have to go even very far in Muslim history. We go to the multiple hadith where the first Khalifa and the second Khalifa did not know the answers. Man came and he was drunk at the time of the rule of Abu Bakr, the first Khalifa. And there's supposed to be a punishment that is applied to this person if he is guilty. He says, I'm guilty, but I didn't know that it was haram in the religion of Allah. He says, okay, well, I don't know what to do with you. Let's go to Abul Hasan. This hadith comes to us from Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, and Imam Ali happens to be sitting with Salman al-Muhammadi. They're talking about something, and the first Khalifa and the second Khalifa, as well as their entourage, as well as this accused man, all come to the house of Imam Ali alayhi salam. They ask him, this is the case of this person. What do we do? Imam Ali alayhi salam says, first and foremost, go to all of the tribe members that he belongs to and ask them one by one, can you swear, can you testify that you either did or did not recite the ayahs of prohibition of alcohol in front of him? If no, he's telling the truth, and because he didn't know, he's free. However, if someone can come and testify that we did read these ayat in front of him, then khalas, go and give him the punishment that you would give anybody else. When they went and asked, they found that nobody had recited these ayat, and they let the man go. This is one of the many times, and we find many other times, even in the books of Bukhari and Muslim, where Abu Bakr and Umar came and said, Lawla Ali, halaka, either Umar or halaka Uthman. Because they don't know. They are not, and by their own admission, they are not fiqh scholars. So you're telling me that the alternative to Rasulullah just appointing someone, which is that the entirety of the Muslim Ummah is supposed to be mature enough to be able to do at least these major functions of a prophet because they've graduated from the school of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are supposed to be the be-all, end-all, that I can go to any single one of them and, like how their own hadith say, my Sahaba are like the nujum of the sky. They are like the stars in the sky. Any one of them that you follow, you will be guided. Of course, we know where the actual hadith came from. They switched one word, Sahaba, from the actual word, which was Ahlul Bayt. Any one of the Imāms of my Ahlul Bayt that you take, you will be guided. Of course, some people, يحسدون الناس على ما آتاهم الله من فضله. That's what it said. Isa says, some people who cannot handle what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to other people. So brothers and sisters, both Sunnis and Shias agree that there has to be a system. It's just that the system of the Ahl Sunnah is Shura. But even the first, second, and third Khalifas, they were never chosen by Shura. The first one, it was 5 people. Quickly, they went and gave their bay'ah, and then they come back to Medina, and then they're like, okay, you have to accept. How did they force them to accept? By sword. At least if Rasulullah says that it's supposed to be shura, tell me how I do the shura, tell me who can be a candidate within the shura, tell me who can be the electorate. In Nahj al-Balagha, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, if it was really supposed to be shura, then where was the electorate? Where were the people where are the voters? I'm over here trying to bury the Prophet. Bilal is over here. Salman is over here. Where are the people who are supposed to vote? The rest of Medina is over here. You people came under a tent in Saqifa Bani Sa'da. And you just decided to go and take the matter into your own hands? Where's the voters? How does Khalifa number 2 come into power? Is there a shura? No. Khalifa number 1 says on his deathbed, Umar will be my successor. So Rasulullah is not allowed to go and say that Imam Ali alayhi salam will be my successor. But Abu Bakr is allowed to go and do that? Then how did number 3 come in? 6 people are told, you guys are the best companions ever. And so I want you guys to be locked into a room for 3 days. And if by the 3rd day, you guys come out and you guys don't have an agreement on who's supposed to be the Khalifa after me, the guards outside will kill all 6 of them. You guys are the best of people. You guys are all going to paradise. But you have 3 days, otherwise I kill all of you. Oh, and by the way, if 5 of you agree on one candidate and 1 of you disagrees, kill the 1. If 4 of you agree on one candidate and 2 disagree, kill the 2. If 3 of you agree on one candidate and 3 of you agree on another candidate, then Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, my in-law, he gets to have 2 votes and he'll break the tie. I didn't know Rasulullah taught us this. I mean, can you give me some sources? Can you help me out? Where did you read any of it? Where did you learn this? By the way, Khalifa number 2, Umar, in the sources of the other school of thought, says that the election of Abu Bakr was a falta. You know what a falta is? It's when the light is yellow and it's about to turn red. It already turned red. You happen to still go through. And you're like, oops, I hope nobody saw that. I'm not going to do that again, but I wasn't supposed to do that. This kind of a slip up, this kind of a mess up, this is what you call a falta. And then he even says in the same hadith, this is not our hadith. In their hadith, he goes and says, and this should never be repeated again. Why? I thought you guys were the role models of the Muslims. I thought you guys learned from Rasulullah. So this is how Khalifa number 3 was picked. And then, of course, with number 4, people wanted damage control. They all came and they said, we want Ali. Ali says in Nahjul Balagha, they were tearing the clothes off of my shoulders. They wanted me. Okay. Is this how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picks? Or how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran? Let's go very, very quickly, brothers and sisters, through the ayat of the Quran. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As an alternative, the Shia school of thought says that only Allah can choose. It's not something that you can just go and put to democracy. Democracy, what else is it? Other than, in some cases, mob rule. If 51% says one thing, 49% says another thing, guess what? Everybody, 100%, has to follow what 51% says. Doesn't seem really fair. This is why even America, they said, okay, we can't be a pure democracy. We have to be a representative democracy. For a little bit of checks and balances put into the system. Nevertheless, this is not something that we as Muslims allow within our faith. Want to go and do that within a secular government? Go ahead. I already mentioned it's not going to work. You know, humankind will try each and every single kind of political system they want until they finally realize and we beg Allah, send us the Savior back. Only then, according to some hadith, Sahib al-Zaman, Ajallah ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif, will come back. Do you have any ayats, brothers and sisters, that prove that this is only and only God's decision? Yes. Surah Al-Qasas, ayah number 68. وَرَبُّكَ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَخْتَارُ مَا كَانَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ سُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَتَعَالَى عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ. Allah will create whoever He wants and He'll choose whoever He wants. It was never their choice. How perfect and far exalted above is Allah over whatever else they decide to associate as partners with Him. Wow. So you're telling me that if I want to go and choose my own Khalifa, this is a form of shirk? According to Surah Al-Qasas, as well as in Surah Al-Nisa. Read the tafsir of Alamat al-Tabayi in those ayat. This. Then we see that whatever it is, whatever kind of title it is, whether it's wazir, whether it's khalifa, whether it's imam, there's always the word ja'ala. Let's see really quickly. وَجَعَلْنِي وَزِيرًا مِنْ أَهْلِ هَارُونَ أَخِي in Surah Taha with Harun alayhi salam. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this dua from Musa? Yes. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابَ وَجَعَلْنَا مَعَهُ أَخَاهُ هَارُونَ وَزِيرًا. That's Surah Al-Furqan, ayah 35. You want the word Khalifa, not Wazir? It's okay, don't worry, we got you. Dawood alayhi salam in Surah Sa'ad, ayah number 26. Ya Dawood, inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard. Oh, Dawood, we have chosen you as a Khalifa. You want the word Imam? Don't worry, we have you covered over there too. For Ibrahim, in ayah number 124 of Surah Al-Baqarah, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Inni ja'iluka lin-nasi imam. Some may object, well, what if this Imam, what if this for Prophet Ibrahim is about prophet? We say, look, there's a clue within the ayah. وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. When did Prophet Ibrahim become a father? According to Surah Al-Ibrahim, he says, thank you, O Allah, for making me a father and giving me Ismail and Ishaq in my old age. So it's not prophethood, it comes after prophethood. And also, I want you to say, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers him. وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي, he says, قَالَ لَا يَنَالُ أَحْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Well, what does this لَا يَنَالُ أَحْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ mean? Okay, we know that it's constrained to the children of Ibrahim. Who exactly does Allah want? Think in your minds, I'm going to draw in mid-air over here a y-axis and an x-axis, okay? Over here, you have the always bad amongst the Dhurriyyah. Let's say like Abu Lahab, always bad. Then you have people who are bad, then they turned good. This was quadrant A, this is quadrant B. In quadrant B, you have people who were bad, then they converted and they became good. Like who? Like, for example, the uncle of the Prophet, Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, converted. Used to be a polytheist, became a theist, became a Muslim. This is quadrant A. Who was our example in quadrant A? Abu Lahab. Quadrant B, who was it? Abbas ibn Abdul. Quadrant C, so we have always bad, bad then good. Now we have always good. Who's always good from day one? This is quadrant C. And quadrant D, people who were good and then they turned bad. Is there any other type of, possibility? You have always bad, you have always good. You have bad then good, you have good then bad. Who's our example over here? In good then bad, for example, Zubayr. He used to be on the side of Imam Ali. By the time that Jamal comes, he's on the other side and he dies. Okay. Who do you think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, La yanalu ahd al-zalim? Clearly, he's not saying bad then good. Yeah, this person's going to be my imam, just like you. The person who went from good, he turned bad. So let's go and put D out of the question. Who's also out of the question? A. A is Abu Lahab. Yeah, the person who's always evil, he's against Rasulullah, he's going to be wrong. So let's put that off to the side. All there is left is 2. One of these, Allah says, not this one. So that means B, the person who was bad, then turned good, like Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, says no. He's not going to become an imam. That leaves only C. Always good. Brothers and sisters, very quickly, what happens in the scenario if Rasulullah dies early? Those first 3 years where he's the only Muslim, Ali ibn Talib and Khadija, who dies? Who takes over? Oh, but he's too young. Yeah, well, he's the only other Muslim. This is something that Imam Hassan alayhi salam also tells us. In Surah An-Nisa, ayah number 83. What does he say? This is the other ayah of Ulil Amri minhum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says over there, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَاتَّبَعْتُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. If it wasn't for the grace of Allah, most of you would have followed shaitan, except for very few of you. Imam Hassan alayhi salam says, this fadl of Allah is Rasulullah. Meaning without Rasulullah, most of you, the Arabs, would have been following shaitan. Illa qalila. So who are those people who without Rasulullah would have still been guided? Hassan alayhi salam says, that's us, Ahlul Bayt. Even then, even if Rasulullah, something happened to him, we would have been there. Allah would have completed the proof through us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. My brothers and sisters, when Abbas alayhi salam goes out into the battlefield, he has such loyalty, and in his couplets, he has such beautiful lines of his loyalty to the Imam of his time. You find Abbas alayhi salam hears the cries, al-atash, 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 from the kids of Imam Hussein as well as the other kids. Imam Hussein alayhi salam is not letting him go into the battlefield. So what does he do? Sukaina comes and asks him, Abu Abbas, could you please go and get us water? The heat of Karbala is killing us. Abbas alayhi salam goes up to Imam Hussein and he says, please, I cannot take these hypocrites anymore. Let me fight. If not, at least let me go get water. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, you have permission to go get water, but he doesn't have permission to go and fight. Abu Fadl Abbas starts riding towards the Furat. Umar ibn Sa'ad says, oh army, you need to go and block him, and 44,000 people go and block the passage of Abu Fadl Abbas towards the Furat. But he has the command, you're not allowed to fight. So he just goes through them and they disperse because none of them want to truly fight him. They remember him from the days of Siffin. He gets to the Furat, brothers and sisters. And Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam says, the heart of my uncle Abbas was like charcoal. It was burning. And when he put his hands into the cold water of the Furat, he really, really wanted to take a drink. But the enemies of Allah see that he goes and lets it slip through his hands and he throws it back into the Furat. And they're confused. Why does he do that? Until they hear the lines, Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Husayn huni faba'dahu ma kunti an takuni hadha Husaynun وارد المنون وتشربيني بارد المعين والله ما هذا فعال ديني ولا فعال صادق اليقين. He says, oh my nafs, oh my soul, you're trying to take this drink of cold water while your master Hussein is still thirsty. This is not the actions of your religion. This is not the actions of one who is convinced of the Imam of his time, the one who is trying to stand up and defend the Imam of his time. This is not the instructions of my father and my mother, Ali ibn Talib and al-Baneen. This is not what they want me to do. So he goes and fills up the jugs of water. And now his mission is simple. Get these jugs of water back to Sukaina. Get them back to those thirsty children in the camp. Abu al-Fadl Abbas now comes on top of the horse. And two mal'oons, they hide behind the palm trees. The enemies of Allah, these same 4,000, they now block the passageway back to Abu Abdullah in the camp of Imam Hussein. They start firing the arrows at Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. One of them pierces this water container, this jug. This was the one that really hurt Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. And he started to cry after this. He said, how am I going to go back now that I failed my mission? With what face am I going to go back? I have promised these children that I would come and bring them back water. But he still wants to come and at least come back to the camp of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. One of those mal'oons, they jump out from behind the palm tree and they sever the right arm of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, and he recites the line, Wallahi in qata'tumu yamini inni uhami abadan an dini wa an imamin صادق اليقين صبت النبي المصطفى الأمين. If you decide to go and cut my right hand, this will not stop my conviction in my Imam. He goes and picks up with his left hand the sword from the grounds of Karbala, and he rides with the sword in his left hand. That second enemy of Allah, once Abu al-Fadl passes by his palm tree, he jumps onto Abu al-Fadl and cuts off his left arm. The left arm is now on the plains of Karbala. Abbas now recites, Ya nafsu la takhshay min al-kuffari wa bashiri bi rahmatil jabbari. قد قطعوا ببغيهم يساري فاصلهم يا رب حر النار. Oh my soul, be patient. Out of their hatred, they have cut off my left hand. Oh Allah, I ask you to put these enemies of Allah into the hellfire. At this moment, Harmala comes and takes one of his three-pronged arrows and he fires it into the eye of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. One of the other enemies fires arrows into the throat of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Others come and fire into the chest of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Now that Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas is about to fall off of his horse, Abu al-Fadl doesn't even have hands to go and catch his fall onto the grounds of Karbala. But even that is not enough. One of the enemies of Allah had an iron pillar that was braided, and he came and he smashed the head of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. As Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas is now falling, his head splits open and his brains start coming out. Now he cannot see, the blood is starting to come into his eyes. He goes and cries out, Ya Hussein, Akhi Hussein. He finally fulfilled that wish of Imam Hussein to call him my brother. But it's in these kinds of circumstances, in these final moments, Imam Hussein alayhi salam rushes and the enemies disperse. Imam Hussein alayhi salam comes to Abu al-Fadl Abbas. But Abu al-Fadl can't tell. He just hears footsteps. He says, oh man, if you're coming to kill me, then give me just a few moments with my brother Hussein so that I can smell his smell one last time. Abu Abdullah puts his head into his lap. Every single time he puts him into his lap, he says, it's me, your brother Abu Abdullah. He keeps on taking off his head and puts it onto the ground. He says, why, Abu al-Fadl? He says, because right now you are holding my head in your lap. In an hour, who will be holding your head, Ya Hussein? In an hour, who will be holding your head in their hands and severing your head? I wish I had another life to defend you. Abu Abdullah comes back to the tent. Sukaina comes and asks him, where is my uncle Abbas? He tells her that your Abbas has been murdered. Zainab hears about this. Abbas was the one person who did not get to say goodbye to the family. Zainab comes and starts crying, oh my brother, oh my Abbas. What will we do after you? We are in total loss after you. Imam Hussein alayhi salam is now crying, wiping his tears with his sleeves. And he says, truly, O Abbas, what will we do after you? Now my back is broken. We have no one left after you. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimin wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun wal 'aqibatu lil muttaqin. Matum Hussein. Ya Hussein.